Nannie Doss was an American serial killer responsible for the deaths of 11 people. She is the complete definition of how love can really make people do crazy things. Nannie Doss was commonly referred to as the Giggling Granny, the Lonely Hearts Killer, the Black Widow, and Lady Blue Beard. Her obsession with romance was on another level. It took a very drastic turn that will leave you shaking in your boots. Welcome to True Stories. Join our lovely family and let us explore some of the most interesting true crime case. As always, if you enjoy, don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Nannie was born on November 4, 1905, in Blue Mountain, Alabama. She was born to Louisa and James Hazel. Nannie was one of 5 children. She had 1 brother and 3 sisters. Of course, as is a common trend in serial killers, Nannie had a sort of troubling childhood. Both Nannie and her mother hated James, who was a controlling father and husband. James would force his children to work on the family farm instead of attending school, resulting in Nannie's poor academic performance. At age 7, Nannie would have an incident that perhaps shaped the monster she would become in the future. While the family was taking a train to visit relatives in southern Alabama, Nannie hit her head on a metal bar on the seat in front of her when the train suddenly stopped. For years after, she suffered severe headaches, blackouts, and depression. Many blamed these and her mental instability on that accident. We all know how head injuries can be brutal and cause personality changes in people. In fact, Fred West, a serial killer who killed young girls with his wife, also suffered a head injury that many suspect caused him to become a cold-blooded killer. During Nannie's childhood, her favorite hobby was reading her mother's romance magazines and dreaming of her own romantic future. Later in life, her favorite part was the Lonely Hearts column, where she would pick out her next victim. Nannie's father forbade the Hazel sisters from wearing makeup and attractive clothing as he believed it would prevent them from being molested by men. He also forbade them to go to dances and other social events. This strict upbringing only made Nannie crave a love of her own. Nannie was first married at age 16 to Charlie Braggs, her co-worker at a linen factory. Surprisingly, her father never had any objections, so the two married after 4 months of dating. Braggs was the only son of a single mother who insisted on continuing to live with him after he married. This of course upset Nannie. Because of her obsession with romance, she wanted Braggs all to herself. Soon the marriage produced 4 daughters for the couple. What Nannie's view on romance proved to be only fiction. Reality was kicking in, and she didn't like it one bit. She was a mother of 4, her husband would disappear for days on end, and she was stuck with an overbearing mother-in-law. Stressed out, Nannie started drinking, and her casual smoking habit became a heavy addiction. That became her daily routine, drinking and smoking. The partners suspected each other of infidelity. Rightfully so. In 1927, the couple lost their 2 middle girls to suspected food poisoning. What a coincidence, the children were in perfectly good condition till their sudden death. Soon after, Braggs took firstborn daughter Malvina and fled, leaving newborn Florine behind. Braggs' mother died not much later, and Nannie took a job in a cotton mill to support Florine and herself. Braggs brought Malvina back in the summer of 1928, accompanied by a divorcee with her own child. Braggs and Nannie soon divorced, with Nannie taking her 2 girls back to her mother's home. Braggs always maintained he left her because he was frightened of her. He would be the only man to survive the grasps of the Black Widow. Nannie never gave up on her dream for romance. She met and married her second husband Robert Franklin in 1929. They lived in Jacksonville with Malvina and Florine. However, her dream for a perfect romance would be shuttered once again. After a few months, she discovered that Robert was an alcoholic and had a criminal record for assault. Despite this, the marriage lasted 16 years. Malvina gave birth to Robert Lee Haynes in 1943. Another baby followed 2 years later but died soon afterward. Exhausted from labor and groggy from ether, Malvina thought she saw her visiting mother stick a hatpin into the baby's head. When she asked her husband and sister for clarification, they said Nannie had told them the baby was dead and they noticed that she was holding a pin. The doctors, however, couldn't give a positive explanation. It seemed like maybe Malvina thought she was just hallucinating. Who would imagine that their own mother would cause harm to their grandchild? However, things were never the same for Malvina. The grieving parents drifted apart, and Malvina started dating a soldier. Nannie disapproved of him, and while Malvina was visiting her father after a particularly nasty fight with her mother, her son Robert died mysteriously under Nannie's care. The death was diagnosed as asphyxia from unknown causes, and 2 months later Nannie collected the $500 life insurance she had taken out on Robert. This should have been a red flag big enough to make Malvina run away from her mother. In 1945, Japan surrendered to the Allied powers at the end of World War II, and Harrelson, Nannie's husband, was among the most robust partiers who find any excuse to indulge in alcohol. After an evening of particularly heavy drinking, he raped Nannie. By now, we know that Nannie is not the one to be played with. If you cross her, or even look at her the wrong way, you will end up suspiciously dead. The next day, she discovered Harrelson's corn whiskey jar buried in the ground as she tended a rose garden. The rape had been the last straw for her, so she took the jar and topped it off with rat poison. As a result, Harrelson mysteriously died that evening. Once again, Nannie took out a Lonely Hearts column and spotted her next love interest. She met her third husband, Arlie Lanning, and married him 3 days later. Like Harrelson, Lanning was an alcoholic womanizer. What a bad combination. However, in this marriage it was Nannie who often disappeared and for months on end. But when she was home, she played the doting housewife, and when he died of what was said to be heart failure, the townspeople supported her at his funeral. The couple had seemed happy, and no one thought anything of the suspicious death. Soon after, the couple's house, which had been left to Lanning's sister, burned down. The insurance money went to Nannie, who quickly banked it, and after Lanning's mother died in her sleep, Nannie left North Carolina and ended up at her sister, Dovie's home. Dovie was bedridden. Soon after Nannie's arrival, she died. I wonder why no one ever noticed that everyone who got in contact with Nannie mysteriously died. Maybe it's because she was a very charming lady who always had a smile on her face and was well liked. Looking for yet another husband, Nannie joined a dating service called the Diamond Circle Club and soon met Richard L. Morton of Jamestown, North Carolina. They married in 1952 in Emporia, Kansas. Luckily, he didn't have a drinking problem, but he was adulterous. Nannie's mom came to live with the couple, and months later she also mysteriously died. Morton, Nannie's husband, died 3 months later on May 19, 1953. Surely someone should have noticed that all the men she married all of a sudden died. No one is that unlucky. 1 month later, Nannie married Samuel. Doss was a Nazarene minister who had lost his family to a tornado in Carroll County, Arkansas. Samuel disapproved of the romance novels and stories that his wife adored. He was a very strict Christian and would always impose his beliefs on Nannie. One time he even forbade Nannie to watch TV. As we know by now, this is a no-go zone for Nannie. In September, Samuel was admitted to the hospital with flu-like symptoms. The hospital diagnosed a severe digestive tract infection. He was treated and released on October 5. Samuel died on October 12, 1954. Nannie killed him that evening in her rush to collect the 2 life insurance policies she had taken out on him. This sudden death alerted his doctor, who ordered an autopsy. He couldn't believe his earlier infection would have killed him. The autopsy revealed a huge amount of arsenic in his system. Nannie was promptly arrested. Doss confessed to killing 4 of her husbands, her mother, her sister, her grandson, and her mother-in-law. When asked what a reason for murder was, she claimed that her victims either annoyed her or they disagreed with her. She claimed that her killings were not only to collect insurance money, but she was only looking for the love of her life. While talking to investigators, she did not look remorseful and was giggling the entire time. This behavior earned her the title, "If the Giggling Nanny." She pleaded guilty on May 17, 1955, and was sentenced to life imprisonment. The state did not pursue the death penalty due to her sex. Doss was never charged with the other deaths. She confessed that she had given Samuel the wrong dose the first time, but made sure to give him enough rat poison to kill him the second time. Doss died from leukemia in the hospital ward of the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in 1965. Make sure to check out the case of Fred and Rose West, where a head injury also played a role in creating a serial killer. We've come to the end. As always, leave us a like and subscribe to not miss an upload. Till next time.